Have you ever noticed how we fall in love with a car, even before doing the first calculations? It's almost automatic. You see the model, the color, imagine the feeling of being behind the wheel, and suddenly it seems to become part of your life. But then comes the question that nobody likes to face. Can your salary really support this dream? Or are you about to fall into one of the biggest financial traps hidden in everyday life? Stick with me, because what you're about to discover might explain why so many people live paycheck to paycheck, even when they think they made a good deal. Everyone wants to drive their dream car, but almost nobody wants to face the math behind it. And that's where the 4-20-10 rule comes in as a reality check that many people avoid until the last second. The truth is, the market knows exactly how to manipulate your emotions. It shows you the perfect car, talks about affordable monthly payments, offers longer terms, throws easy numbers at you, a fee here, another there, and before you know it, you're in the dealership signing a loan that seems easy, but can become a huge burden on your finances. Maybe you've been through this before. Maybe you're going through it now. It's not your fault. That's how the system works. It doesn't want you to think about the 4-20-10 rule, because that rule exposes the side nobody wants to show. The car you want might cost much more than you imagine when you factor in interest, hidden fees, endless terms, and depreciation. And that's exactly why 90% of people give up on their dream car when they discover what this rule really entails. But why does this happen? Because when you apply the 24-10 rule, 20% down payment, a maximum of 4 years of financing, and installments that don't exceed 10% of your income, the mask falls. Suddenly, that car that seemed within reach disappears, and it hurts. This is where the emotional aspect comes in. Nobody wants to admit they need to adjust their lifestyle, choose something simpler, or wait a little longer. It's easier to believe that there's always a way, that everyone does it this way, or that it's just a matter of working harder. But this is precisely the kind of thinking that puts thousands of people in traps like high interest rates, long-term debt, and the constant feeling that there's never enough money left at the end of the month. Have you ever felt this way? The most curious thing is that following this rule isn't about limiting your dreams, but about protecting your freedom. The problem is that nobody explains this. Nobody shows the psychological weight of taking on debt that ties you down for years. Nobody talks about how this affects your ability to invest, to save money, to build real wealth. And that's why so many people ignore the rule and end up living strangled by a car that should only be a means of transportation, not an emotional and financial burden. Now I want to take you even deeper into this story, because understanding this dynamic completely changes how you look at consumption, desire, and financial discipline. And when we understand all of this, we start to see car financing in a new light. It's no longer just about driving something beautiful or feeling that sense of accomplishment. It's about freedom, about breathing without fear of bills, about making choices that truly strengthen your future. And I know that, at some point in this conversation, some part of this must have resonated with you. Perhaps a memory of a financing that weighed too heavily, perhaps that feeling of silent regret, or even the relief of finally understanding why money never seemed to keep pace with your life. If this topic resonates with you, leave a comment below about what touched you most, your experience, or even that question that was never properly explained to you. This exchange we have in the comments is what creates a community of people who want to evolve together and avoid the same traps that so many people still fall into. And since we're talking about real impact, take the opportunity to like the video if, in some way, this conversation opened your eyes or brought clarity to something that was a mess inside you. Believe me, each like helps YouTube deliver this message to more people who are in exactly the same situation you are in, or who you may still be trying to get out of. And if you feel that this is the kind of content that helps you make better, more conscious decisions, more aligned with your financial reality, subscribe to the channel too. It's not just a button. It's a way of saying, I want to keep growing, and of strengthening a space where we speak the truth unfiltered, without empty promises, and without that consumer pressure that only distances you from your goals. Your participation here is what makes this channel grow and reach more people with this type of message. People who need to hear this reality before falling into avoidable debt. And that inspires me to continue bringing sincere, deep, and truly useful conversations. Because I know that on the other side, there is someone seeking change, clarity, and direction. Now that you're with me on this journey, I want to delve even deeper into this subject because when we connect emotion, mathematics, and mindset, everything starts to make much more sense. When we set aside emotion and look at the bare math, the 24-10 rule appears almost like a ray of light amidst the financial chaos surrounding car purchases. The logic is simple, direct, almost childlike. 20% down payment, a maximum of 4 years of financing, and installments that don't exceed 10% of your rent. But the emotional impact is enormous because the moment you hear those numbers, your brain automatically makes that quick calculation. If that's the case, the car I wanted doesn't fit my reality, and that's the part that hurts. Not because the rule is harsh, but because it reveals the hidden truth that many people try to hide from themselves. The dream car doesn't always match your current salary. Understanding this rule is almost like undergoing a silent transformation. Suddenly, you realize it's not there to frustrate you. It's there to protect you. It's the yardstick that separates those who are in control of their financial decisions from those who live suffocated without realizing it. When you put down 20%, something changes in your mindset. You start to see the car as a goal, not as an impulsive purchase. It's different from falling for the zero down payment line, which seems tempting, but almost always traps you in installments that will follow you for years. Behind the scenes of the market, everyone knows that the smaller the down payment, the greater the dependence. And the larger the financing, the greater the risk of losing momentum halfway through. The maximum term of 4 years is another point that often generates resistance, because it is precisely here that many realize the impact of the decision they were about to make. Long-term financing seems smoother because it spreads the problem over time, but in practice, it only camouflages the real weight of the debt. It's like stretching a rubber band to its limit, believing it will never break, but it always does. 4 years is not a magic number. It's a healthy limit to prevent you from paying for a car that has already lost half its value while you're still stuck with the contract. And then comes the most shocking part, the 10% of income. This is where many people find themselves caught between desire and reality. Because when you honestly do the math, you realize that most of the cars the market pushes on you don't fit your budget. This reveals something powerful about consumer decisions. Most financial problems don't stem from a lack of money, but from choices made in the heat of the moment. The rule works almost like a mirror, sometimes an uncomfortable one, that shows exactly where you are and how far you can go without compromising your future. And yet, even in the face of that initial shock, there's something liberating about understanding these numbers. Because when you accept this benchmark, you gain clarity, direction, and control. And that control is what separates endless debt from a carefree life, where every choice has purpose, and every step leads you to something greater. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because when we realize how this rule redefines not only the purchase of a car, but also how we perceive value, priority, and financial maturity, everything truly begins to change. Comment below. That makes sense to me. This is where many people stumble, because when the conversation gets to the emotional part, the truth comes out in a way that almost no one likes to admit. Most people don't buy a car because they desperately need it. They buy it because there's a mix of status, impulse, and that feeling that if they don't take advantage now, they'll miss the opportunity. And this mentality is fueled from all sides, by advertising that promises freedom, by the salesperson who says, "This is the last model at this price," by friends who comment that "you deserve it," and even by the silent pressure of not seeming like someone who's been left behind. But behind the scenes of this decision, there's an uncomfortable revelation. The 4-20-10 rule only seems impossible because many people base their choices on emotion, not reality. And it is precisely here that the most profound impact of this micro-theme lies. The rule is not the villain of the story. It only illuminates what was hidden. What hurts is not the number, but the confrontation with the hidden truth that perhaps the desired car is not compatible with the current moment in your life. And when this realization hits, it's common for the person to feel frustration, wounded pride, even that feeling of silent defeat, as if admitting that they can't afford their dream car is a sign of failure. But that's not true. The real failure is sinking into high interest rates, endless refinancing, impulsive exchanges, and years of wasted money without building absolutely anything. Many people spend decades trapped in this spiral because they chose a car emotionally, but paid financially for a burden they didn't need to carry. It's like deciding to run a marathon without realizing you're carrying a backpack full of rocks. Each excessively large installment, each invisible fee, each refinancing that seems like a solution, but only prolongs the pain, transforms into more accumulated emotional and financial weight. And when you look around, you realize this behavior is much more common than it seems. It's no wonder that more than 90% would immediately give up on their dream car if they applied the rule honestly. Not because the rule is harsh, but because it reveals how much we've been conditioned to believe that debt is normal, when, in reality, it's just a modern prison with well-disguised doors. And there's something powerful about how this reality affects us. It's almost as if the rule acts as an invitation to a mindset shift, something that takes you out of autopilot and puts you face to face with your own consumption decision. It's not about giving up on the dream. It's about understanding that the journey to achieve it requires clarity, patience, and above all, courage to face this part of the truth that so many avoid. The rule seems harsh because it breaks the spell of impulse buying, but it saves financial lives precisely for that reason. Because it protects you from becoming just another number in the statistics of people who spend years paying for something that no longer makes sense. And when you let that initial shock settle, you begin to realize that there's a kind of hidden freedom within that perception. A silent, almost spiritual freedom to finally see that the perfect car isn't the one that impresses others, but the one that doesn't steal your peace. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because understanding this point completely changes how you see desire, responsibility, and the future. Write this down. I'm on this journey too. And the scariest part is that all of this happens silently. Nobody warns you. Nobody sends a notification saying you're about to pay for 2, maybe even 3 cars, without even realizing it. The financing starts small. The numbers seem acceptable. But when you put everything on paper, and really put it on paper, without fooling yourself, the shock is inevitable. A car costing 25,000 RON can easily turn into a car costing 40,000 or more. But the extra cost isn't optional. It's not luxury. It doesn't come with leather seats or a sunroof. It's just the invisible cost of a poorly calculated decision. It's the accumulated interest, the fees nobody mentions, the more expensive mandatory insurance, the inflated vehicle tax, and of course, the natural depreciation. That continues to happen while you haven't even paid off half of what you owe. It's like entering a game with hidden rules. In the shop window, the car is just a product. But in the contract, it becomes a commitment that consumes your income, your peace of mind, and your ability to build something bigger. What seemed like just another purchase becomes a kind of soft prison, one without bars, but which limits your life with the same intensity. And the worst part is that this cycle repeats itself. With each trade-in, each refinancing, the debt lengthens, the interest grows, the total amount paid increases, and the feeling of progress disappears. You feel like you're always paying, but never getting anywhere. And it is at this point that the 4-20-10 rule returns with even more force, because it is like a beacon in the middle of this fog. It clearly points out how far you can go without getting lost. But why is it so frightening? Because it reveals the distance between what you want and what you can sustain with financial health. And facing this requires courage. It's much more comfortable to go with the flow, sign the 60-month financing, and tell yourself that that's just how it is. That everyone does it. That I'll see later. But the truth is that later always comes. And when it does, the emotional price is as high as the financial one. When you ignore this rule, the car ceases to be just a means of transportation and becomes a drain on your income. And over time, this drain affects everything around it. The money you could save, the trip that never happens, the investment that always gets postponed, even the peace of mind of looking at your bank statement without feeling that tightness in your chest. Because you know, deep down, that you're paying too much for something that perhaps didn't even need to cost so much. A balanced financial life isn't about deprivation. It's about awareness, about seeing beyond the monthly payment, about understanding the total cost of each decision. And when you start calculating the real cost of maintaining that car that seemed to fit in your budget but occupies every corner of your freedom, you understand that it wasn't the car that became expensive. It was you who began to value peace, autonomy, the possibility of growing without chains disguised as achievement. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because understanding the true weight of carrying debt that drags on for years can completely change how you deal with money, choices, and even your identity as a consumer. Comment below. The numbers don't add up, and it is precisely at this point in the journey that the mindset shift truly begins to happen. When you finally understand the invisible cost, the emotional impact, and the hidden truth behind each installment, something inside you changes. It's no longer about the car itself, the shine of the dashboard, or the new car smell. It's about the weight you carry when you make choices, without seeing the big picture. And this transformation is powerful because it doesn't stem from guilt, but from clarity. It's when you realize that choosing a car that your financial life can sustain is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of maturity, vision, and respect for yourself and your future. The 24-10 rule stops seeming like a barrier and becomes a filter that protects you from decisions that could hold you back for years. It works almost like an emotional and financial map, pointing to a lighter path where you don't have to trade freedom for a false sense of accomplishment. The truth is that following this rule doesn't kill the dream. On the contrary, it accelerates the possibility of achieving it in a solid, conscious way without hidden chains. Because there is nothing more frustrating than achieving something that should represent progress, but ends up becoming an invisible anchor that prevents you from moving forward. When you choose a car within your means, you're doing much more than making a rational purchase. You're sending yourself a message. I will no longer sacrifice my future for impulsive decisions. And this new mindset opens doors that previously seemed locked. You begin to feel that your income starts to breathe again, that planning finally makes sense, that money begins to align with your goals instead of dragging you down. It's a gradual, almost silent, but profoundly transformative liberation. And the phrase may sound simple, but it carries enormous weight. Cars come and go. Debt remains. Financial freedom, that's what changes your life, because you can trade in a car, sell it, get tired of it, replace it. But debt, that grows, tightens, limits. And when you decide you're no longer going to live to pay interest, you take the first step towards building something that truly matters: security, autonomy, and peace. It's understanding that living within your means isn't about diminishing your dream, but preparing fertile ground for it to flourish in due time. And the more you delve into this mindset, the more you realize that this choice doesn't steal anything from you. It gives back. It gives back time. It gives back peace of mind. It gives back the feeling of being in control of your own journey. It's as if your financial life finally gains a more human, more intelligent rhythm, more connected to what truly motivates you. And this is where everything starts to make sense. Because when you align dreams and responsibility, the result isn't sacrifice, it's growth. Now I want to delve even deeper into this subject, because understanding how this internal change impacts all other decisions in your financial life is what truly transforms the way you move forward. Write this down. I choose freedom. If you've made it this far, you can tell this topic really resonates with you in some way. And that's why I want to extend a very simple invitation. If this content has helped you see something more clearly, consider subscribing to the channel. It's not just to increase numbers. It's because if these conversations make sense to you, this is the place where we delve even deeper into this mindset of smart choices, financial freedom, and decisions that truly build a future. Take advantage of this opportunity and leave a comment saying, "I'm with you until the end." Because I really want to know who walked with me all the way to this final stretch. This exchange makes a difference for me, for the channel, and for the community we're building together. And of course, if at any point during this video you felt that inner click, that wow, this needed to be said, leave a like. It's amazing how a simple gesture like that helps this type of message reach exactly who needs to hear it. And since you're here, in rhythm, focused, and open-minded to transformation, there's a video over here that perfectly complements what we discussed today. Click and continue with me there. Your journey is just beginning.